Hi, Test Pro followers. Welcome to another episode of our learning techniques to help you manage your dressage test learning better. And I'm here again with Tracy Cole. And this time we're going to talk about NLP techniques and also about the different styles of learning. So, welcome, Tracy.
Thank you very much.
And so I think we've already told test proers in the past, that's me told test proers in the past about the different ways people learn, because we're not all the same, are we? We use sort of different senses. So
Yeah.
could we perhaps refresh their memories of I think there's four from memory, different types of learning sort of I don't know, would you call them senses that we use? They seem to map to our senses, don't they?
Yeah, they do map to our senses. Yeah. In NLP, we use jargon and we call them internal representation or
Wow.
preferred representations. But yeah, there are senses basically. And some people prefer to use one or more and maybe not so much of others. So most people, about 40% of people, like to use the visual senses. So they are very much visual learners. So they learn by watching videos. They learn by looking at your app and reading it and visualizing it. They visualize it in their head as they sort of go through the movements. The next one that's equally as prevalent is the kinesthetic learners, and they're the doers. And I know on your app you can learn kinesthetically, you can move things around, can't you? You can
Yeah.
draw on and so on. So they like to do things, they're very much into the feel of things. They have an intuition, if you like, when things feel right. The third set, about 10% of people, are auditory learners. So they like to be told, they like to listen.
Mhm.
They're not too bothered about video, but they will be listening very much. And they're the type of people who will listen as a list. They'll have it as a list in their head and they'll probably repeat it. I'm very much related to those people. Another 10% of people are the auditory digital. Now, they can hone in on other representation systems, but they like things to be sequenced, they like order, they like logic. So they're looking at the test sheet probably and looking at the flow of it and thinking about, well, if I do this on one rein, I'm going to do it on the other. They're looking at it in that kind of way. They're looking at it a sequence of different steps and they're thinking, well, what does the judge want from each of these?
Okay. So are they like sort of quite pattern related? It sounds like
Yeah,
as you say, if they're looking at the flow, they may be looking at the pattern. And I suppose also that's where we get a more sort of visual aspect as well coming in. Probably they're a
yeah,
combo of the two. And that's
yeah.
the thing, isn't it? It's that we're not necessarily just one type or representation.
No, no.
Um,
Some people are a mixture of all four. Some people are two. Some people are highly non-visual. You know, you get people who say, well, I can't visualize, things like that.
Mhm.
But we tend all to be different mixture, and it depends what activity we're doing. Because it might be that away from dressage, even away from horses, people may prefer a different representation system.
Oh, that's quite interesting. I mean, I'm quite a visual person, but I would also say I'm quite kinesthetic. So I do like if I'm learning a new movement on a horse, if somebody was teaching me half pass for the first time, which was quite a long time ago, actually, um, the feel of it when it's right is really important to me.
Mm.
when I'm learning my test, the visual aspect and the drawing on the screen in Test Pro is really important. So when I watch it playing the test through, I learn a lot from that. And then I like to draw on the screen. So I think that's then sort of combining those skills, isn't it? All those ways of learning. Uh,
Hmm. That's
that's
quite interesting because you're visual and kinesthetic, and I'm the other two. I'm the auditory and the auditory digital, so we've got all bases covered.
there you go. So I'm more in the common group, the more the people that people learn, and you're more in the sort of less common,
Yeah.
which is quite interesting. And I like your point about away from horses or dressage or whatever we're doing, jumping, that you might be slightly different too, in that you might have an element, I suppose, of the sort of reading and then writing lists or whatever. And I'm quite list oriented as well in my
Mm.
work life. I love nothing better than a to-do list, and but I quite like to write it down. How weird is that, being a digital person? How weird is it that I quite like physically writing? Because
Yeah.
again, I wonder if that's my kinesthetic side coming out in me, in that I want
Yeah.
to sort of blend it all in so that I sort of remember my to-do list better.
Mm.
But
Mm.
it's very interesting. Okay, so how can we use these skills, the visual, and the kinesthetic in my case, and the digital text and whatnot. How can we sort of use those sort of bits of ourselves to really get things in our head and then recall them when we need to?
Mm.
Are there any NLP techniques that could help us there?
Yeah, sure. Um, and it's good that we realize we're all everything,
Mhm.
more or less all the time. We are all using all of them. So one little technique to do when you're learning the test is to use your eye patterns, because you'll notice when somebody speaks, their eyes go all over the
Yeah.
place. Mine do, certainly, anyway. And what that shows is that you're accessing certain parts of the brain. Now, if you use that, if you put the information into certain parts of the brain and you retrieve it in a similar fashion, then it helps you to learn it a bit more quickly and a bit more deeply.
Oh,
So the first thing to do is to get your Dressage Test Pro on your phone. And if you're right-handed, unfortunately, if you're left-handed, you're going to have to do this in
the
mirror
opposite.
image.
Yeah.
You're going to do everything the opposite. But if you're right-handed, then look up to your left. So
Okay.
you're looking up to your left. So you've got your phone up slightly up to your left, and you're reading maybe the test,
Hmm.
reading it through. And we said last time about small chunks. So you're reading your chunk, and then you want to just put your test or your phone down.
Hmm.
Go then into your bottom left. So you started in top left, now your bottom left, and repeat it over to yourself what was
Okay.
going on, all the moves that you can remember. And then go down to your right. That's the last one, it's only three. Okay, down to your right, which is your kinesthetic. And
Okay.
down to your right, you can do your kinesthetic. So if that is drawing on the screen, however you want to do that, or if you're not terribly kinesthetic, it's still useful to go down there, even if you're just praising yourself for remembering that chunk. So you
Okay.
might, so if it was me, I'm not terribly kinesthetic, but I would make use of it and I go down to kinesthetic and just say, well done, you've remembered the first bit or something like that. And that's enough to also help your unconscious mind, which is rather like a 5-year-old child, just get on board and say, oh, I'm doing it correct. Oh, I'm okay. I can keep going with what I'm doing. So it's just up to the left for reading it or watching it, if you're watching a video clip, anything visual, down and just start repeating it to yourself, saying it over and over, and then down to your right for your kinesthetic, either drawing on your screen or I'm doing a good job.
Okay. So, and if I'm left-handed, I just reverse that, do I? So
Yeah, so
I
you're
go
gonna look the
up
opposite way.
way.
Yeah,
Yeah.
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 So yeah, it's just up to your right, down to your
So
right, and across to your left. So it's always an L shape kind of thing. It just depends if you're left or right-handed.
now, you know, how long, and this could be a piece of string question, I'm afraid. How long does it take people to sort of get used to, looking or starting to learn your test up to your left, you know, down and then across? Is it something that I'm best to start practicing in small pieces, small chunks,
Yeah.
to
Yeah,
get
because
familiar?
it's quite new, isn't it? And at
Yes.
first you'd be thinking, oh, which way do I go up? And then what do I do? And it's not automatic to you. So I wouldn't do it for like a test that you've got to do the next day or in 2 days' time. Do your old system. But a test that, maybe you're just practicing, or a test that's a week or so away, then you've got plenty of time to have a go at that.
Okay, cool. And so I think that's a really good thing, is that we do tend to learn our tests at the last minute, or go down the centre line and have a caller and not even know where you're going. I'm not like that. I find that very anxiety inducing myself. Um,
Yeah.
you know, but so in the scenario we've prepared and we've learnt our test and we haven't got a caller, so we are going off down the centre line, how can we recall the test, if we have a little bit of panic? And we talked about this in a previous little chat about the brain freeze
Yeah.
aspect. So
Yeah.
just to think about it, how can we recall that test in a moment of a bit of a brain freeze?
So you can do it before brain freeze as well to test
Okay.
yourself. Do I know this test while you're sitting at home? But also in the brain freeze moment, put your eyes back in that upward position. So the right handers go to the left and the left handers go to the right. Put your eyes up there and you will recall it more easily. It will
Okay.
come to you more visually. If you say, "Oh, do you know, I'm just not a visual recall person," that's the quickest, by the way.
Okay. Up to the left.
It's more automatic if you do
Yeah.
that. Slightly slower, but if you say, I'm not visual at all," go down. That
Okay.
first downward one. So the right handers are going down to the left and the left handers are going down to the right.
Okay.
It made you might lose a few points because you're going to be
Yeah.
a little bit slower. It's going to take a few more seconds, but it will come back to you that list that you recounted.
Yeah, I mean, I'm thinking the up to the left, down to the left. You could be, once you're used to using that as a technique, it could be quite quick, actually.
Yeah,
Actually,
yeah.
in, if you were in a long arena, for example, doing a novice test,
You've got a
you
long
know,
way to go.
you've got plenty of time really to recall. And or I'm thinking, if you're part way round a circle and thinking, crikey, I can't remember what the next thing is, a quick up to the left or down to the left, depending on what suits you best. That would be quite a quick thing. You're not even talking about a second. I mean, because a
Mm,
second actually is quite a long time.
yeah,
And just a bit of, I know, do you think breathing helps as well in that moment
yeah,
of tension? Just have a relax and
yeah,
just sort of take a bit of a breath, look, center
yeah.
yourself a bit, come back down. Yeah, okay. I think that's really useful. Um, if I wanted to learn a bit more about these techniques, where would I go? What would I I do? Is there somewhere that maybe I could read or video, or obviously I can contact you yourself? But is there anywhere that you would go as a first port of call, maybe?
So there is so much on the internet now,
Yeah.
so much on
Mm.
the internet. So you can Google eye patterns and learning, and
Ah, okay.
and that will get you a million hits probably. So yeah, anything like that, any NLP and learning
Okay.
strategies, something like
Okay.
that, that there is so much information. Yeah.
Fabulous. So, any of our followers that fancy sort of maybe delving into it a bit more, if they could either potentially book a session with you, or they could obviously go and have a little Google, or they can do both, really, because,
Yeah.
that whatever suits them best. Well,
Yeah.
thank you for that. I think that was really interesting, and I'm going to try and incorporate some of this into my next learning. I'm also going to try and do a little video about it, and see how it goes. I'll tell everybody how I got on because I have got a new test to learn. And so,
Mm.
yes, and that's for the weekend. So I will let everybody know how it goes, whether I manage to use integrate those techniques. So thank you once again, and look forward to seeing you soon.
Thanks so much.